A growing coalition of former Trump voters now say they'll never cast a ballot for him again. The group, Republican Voters Against Trump, is collecting their stories as part of a $50 million ad buy to keep him out of the Oval Office.
I am a conservative Republican, but I cannot stand the lying, the cheating, the illegal activities that Trump has perpetuated.
Basically, Trump lost, and he is a poor loser.
I was a Haley supporter, but now I'm going to vote for Biden. There are key issues such as democracy that are bigger than any one candidate or any one policy disagreement.
I know that democracy will be saved under Biden, and we can start the Republican Party anew once the era of Trump is over.
Former Republican Congressman and MSNBC political analyst David Jolly and Washington Post opinion editor and MSNBC political analyst Alexi McCammon join us now. Welcome to you both.
Hello. It is so nice to see you guys. Talk to me, David, about these messengers, right? Because you have former Vice President Mike Pence saying he's not going to vote for Donald Trump, not going so far as to say he will endorse President Biden. We could talk about that. But then to have these everyday Americans also saying, I voted for him. I get it. I'm one of you, but I'm not going to do it again. If you had to weight those, who carries more weight?
So we're in the world of permission structure now, and I think the most relatable voices are the voices you just saw. And what is different about those voices is the willingness to say, so therefore I will vote for Joe Biden, because that is absolutely what's missing from elected Republican leaders. And honestly, we're 8 years into this. There is no learning curve. If you're not willing to say, so then the answer is Joe Biden, then that's just not good enough. And look, if your resistance to Donald Trump is on tax policy, I get it. OK, you're not going to vote for Joe Biden. But if you're suggesting that he is a threat to democracy, that he is unfit for office, that he is dangerous, then the only answer is to also say, so therefore vote for Joe Biden, because otherwise you risk voters staying home or voters flirting with a third-party candidate, which could very well hurt Joe Biden.
Michael Steele, yesterday you said much the same, and you said you were greedy, that you wanted to see Mike Pence not just come out against Donald Trump, but you wanted the Biden endorsement too. Well, our friend David Jolly, equally greedy.
No, David and I are simpatico as usual because that's my boy. But the reality of it is very much that. I love the clip, that sound bite where the young man says, "Now I'm voting for Biden," and that's the key thing, Alexi, I believe, in this election. We saw in 2016 Trump voters come out against him in 2020, right? So since that time, what happened? He got more votes, right, that year in 2020. So are you seeing from your reporting any signs that this, what we saw captured in this video is actually going to make this time different with voters?
I mean, obviously, it remains to be seen. And this election is much more like 2016 than 2020 for a number of reasons. I agree with David Jolly on both points that it's not enough to just not endorse Trump. You have to also say Biden is the choice if you care about democracy. But also the number of folks in the electorate who don't like both major party nominees has fluctuated quite a bit. In 2016, it was something like 17%, and Trump won them by a large margin. In 2020, they were only 3% of the electorate, and Biden won them. Now, this year, they're about 19-20% of the electorate. And for a lot of folks who see these videos, if you do not say, like that man said, no, I'm going to vote for Biden, I think you're kind of encouraging people who don't like either Biden or Trump to stay home, because you're not sort of offering them an alternative choice. You're just sort of saying, you voted for Trump in the past, he's not good enough this time, therefore, good luck.
And Lisa, that's the key part of this. Offering that ramp, as David noted, that giving that permission structure to say, OK, and it's hard for some Republicans. I mean, they're really baked into the infrastructure of the GOP. So to then make that leap, you need that line of encouragement that says it's OK. It's OK, because you're not necessarily just voting for the man. You're voting for the country. And that's the important part of this.
Well, and it was notable to me. We've pulled apart a lot of the former president's speech from last night, but there was one piece of sound, I'm not going to play it, I'm going to paraphrase it for you, that I also thought was worth discussing, which is, as we all know, you have President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris out there saying that, they worry about the future of American democracy and American elections should Donald Trump be reelected. He's now out there trying to make the same argument to his base, saying, I don't think you're going to have another election in this country if we don't win this election. I don't think you're going to have another election, or certainly not an election that's meaningful. I mean, David Jolly, I would talk about the gall, but it's the least of what we've seen. Yeah, and let's identify how perverse that is, because he never says why. Why would there not be a next election, right? When Democrats and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris say there might not be another election, it's because democracy itself is on the ballot, and Donald Trump will wreck our constitutional democracy. Why is it the end of the republic if Donald Trump loses? Is it because his voters refuse to accept the election? Is it because he unleashes violence in the street? Why Donald Trump is it the end of our democracy is a very pressing question for him.
Finish the ellipse.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you complete that thought? Though, as you might have noticed in the speech, he had a lot of trouble completing thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. You know, for someone, Michael Steele, who likes to talk about other people's mental acuity, he couldn't seem to get there himself.
The man can't string together a complete sentence. I mean, I've had more than one person say that to me over the last few months, that at the end of the day, everyone's focused on Joe Biden speech pattern. He has a stutter, folks. He has a stutter that he tries to control. What's Donald Trump's excuse? Because I'm telling you, he can't do it. And so it really kind of raises a number of flags for me, David, around this idea of how people perceive these two individuals. Right. At the end of the day, you're looking at Donald Trump and Joe Biden as men who are going to run the country for the next 4 years. Right. And within that body of voters, you're finding this phenomenon that has been tagged or labeled double haters, people who, you know, a pox on both their houses. How does that dynamic change? Because Alexi raised the question of people possibly staying home. Is that what we look at with these double haters? Is there an opportunity to break into that a little bit and to get them to hate one a little less than the other? What are we doing here?
Yeah, there is, and that's a big concern. And first, let's take the first part of your question, which is I think voters wrongly conflate age and fitness, right? Yes. They're both old. Joe Biden's old. But where has his age been a limitation? As James Carville said about a previous administration to voters complaining, what are you so upset about, the peace or the prosperity? Because where has his age limited either one? It hasn't. With Donald Trump, it's fitness. Yes, he's as old as Joe Biden, but the question is around fitness. So somehow now voters, we have these double haters, and where they move could actually decide the election. But I'm going to use this opportunity now to take a gratuitous swipe, if I could, at no labels, because their choice will be either Biden or Trump, or stay home, or look at a third party. And what No Labels has constructed could ultimately swing it to Donald Trump for a couple reasons. In the most likely scenario, they withhold votes in key electoral college states that then swing that state or secure that state for Donald Trump. If they are ambitious enough and successful enough to actually win a state, to win electoral votes and throw this thing into the House, Donald Trump becomes president, and the likely flipped Republican Senate picks a Republican vice president. That's where these double haters, if they get entertained by a No Labels movement, gets very dangerous for Joe Biden.
We're going to talk about No Labels a little bit later in the show, but I do want to make sure that we talk, Alexi, about this Axios focus group. These were Wisconsin swing voters who were, among other things, blaming the GOP for the failed border bill with those interviews. So these are Trump voters from 2016 who flipped to Biden in 2020. And the good news for Democrats here, Alexi, is that it seemed that the president's State of the Union address helped reorient these voters towards the fact that if they are angry about inaction in Washington, D.C., then they need to place that anger at the feet of Republicans, which would seem to me to offer Democrats a pretty clear path forward, which is you got to be connecting the dots for these voters. You have to be helping them understand who in Washington is holding up progress on any number of issues.
Yeah, I mean, I love the focus groups that Axios does. I used to lead them when I was with them, and they're so insightful because these are the folks who will decide elections. They don't have that party loyalty that a lot of other voters do, and so they're incredibly volatile. I think what's important from that focus group, though, is that while they say that they understand Republicans and Trump are the reason that the border crisis is not being fixed, somehow they also say that they still trust Trump more than Biden to handle the border crisis, which is just part of this narrative that Trump has baked in the cake since really 2016 when he announced his campaign. Folks still believe that somehow he's the tough guy on handling immigration because of the way he talks, and yet you look at his actions and they simply don't match up because he knows he needs a political issue to campaign on, and he has said explicitly that is the reason why Republicans should oppose it, because he needs something to continue haranguing against and creating a foil in addition to Joe Biden and the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.